Okay, well, a big thank you to Stowe. Found that very, very interesting. I wanted to cover just a few things, just three things. We may not make it all the way through the three things, but three key thoughts from our 20-year experience of reaching out to secular people. I would say we're 15, 20 years ahead of where some of the university campuses are in the US. So one thing is actually just how key the role of a labourer is in reaching people in the secular world. The quality of the labourer is still vital. But even if you've got great labourers, they need a story that resonates with secular people. What is that story? What is that biblical story? How do we tweak it so that it reaches into the hearts of secular people? And then what are the missional vehicles? What are the spaces that we can use so that we can run the movement that Christ has asked us to run? What are those spaces that connect us to secular people? They're the kind of things that we've been playing with and seeing some success with. But the bottom line for the navigators is that we're on the right track with the calling and the stuff that Jesus has asked us to do. We only need to tweak a couple of things in order to reach secular people. And I'm going to point to a couple of those things. So, first off, this is how the rescue of Europe starts, doesn't it? Paul has a vision. He's walking well with Christ. He has this vision, and this guy in Macedonia standing and begging him, come over to Europe and help us. And so that's what Paul does. But interestingly, as he steps into Europe, his first experience is that people, instead of finding people begging him for help, he finds people who are saying, no, we don't like what you're bringing. They're beating him up, they're stripping him, and they're putting him into prison. And we end up with this great line, don't we, in Acts 16, where Paul and Silas are in prison singing hymns, and these first European prisoners are listening to them. And I really like this as my kind of opening thing. The reason the gospel comes to Europe is because of the quality of the labourer that Jesus is using, that Jesus is sending. Even though our reaction to those labourers isn't a good one. And I like to illustrate that with this little diagram that I've got about what a missional community, what a secular missional community looks like. And at the centre of it, you've got a gravity pulling towards Christ. Christ has a pull over the human heart and over the human condition. He has a pull on the human mind, as we've heard from Stowe. That pull can pull in people who are out there in the crowds. They may not like what they're seeing. They may be rebelling and saying, this guy's taken away all of our economy and our money-making schemes. Or they might be like the prisoners in prison who are beginning to listen. Not just the crowds, but you've got people like Lydia, who turns up and she's a believer, but she just doesn't have a personal relationship with God. She's out there in the secular world too. Our job is to help those believers become followers. And that's what happens as Paul lands on the European continent, isn't it? That God steps in and opens that lady's heart. But the only reason that's happening is because we've got these quality labourers, these servants of Christ, who are willing to be flogged and still end up praying and singing hymns to God. It's the quality of the people that Jesus calls into Europe that guarantee that first missional movement. So that's one of my, if we're going to reach secular people in Europe, what we really need are quality labourers, people who know Jesus well, and that authentic life that Stowe was talking about. If you've got an authentic life where Jesus is working for you, people are attracted and you have a message that you can share. So that's my first thing about the lesson that we've learned in Europe. It actually comes down to the quality of the labourer, but a labourer needs a language that communicates. Here's my favourite atheist quote about life in the secular world from a guy called Alan de Botton. I love his stuff, but he's got this book called Religion for Atheists. And he says this: we can recognise that we invented religions to serve two central needs, which continue to this day and which secular society has not been able to solve with any particular skill. First, the need to live together in communities in harmony, despite our deeply rooted selfish and violent impulses. And second, the need to cope with terrifying degrees of pain, which arise from our vulnerability to professional failure, to troubled relationships, to the death of loved ones, and to our decay and demise. God may be dead, but the urgent issues which impelled us to make him up still stir and demand resolutions, which do not go away when we've been nudged to perceive some scientific inaccuracies in the tale of the 7 loaves and fishes. So I like the honesty of Alan de Botton. He's saying the secular world has not found answers to the human condition. Things like decay and loss, aging and loss. Things like, how do I make relationships work? What is life about? Where do I find security and significance in this broken world? So I like that. That's for me, it's a great opener for why is the gospel needed? Because the secular world does not have the answers. So that brings me to my language. What's the story that I'm sharing as I wander across the road here in Leicester in the UK, go into the student centre, sit down with some students and say hello? What's the story that I'm sharing? And our experience of the last 25 years is we've gone from ministering to the head as navigators, and instead we've tried to find a story that ministers to the heart. What's people's personal, painful experience of the human condition? And can we phrase Christ's answer in a way that makes sense to them? Can we minister to the heart, not just the head? And can we do it in an authentic way where they see that Jesus is working for me? So one of my favorite ways of doing this is to use Taylor Swift. I may not have read quite so many books as Stowe, but I have listened to every one of Taylor Swift's songs. So that makes me an expert on Gen Z, I think. One of the things I really like about Taylor Swift is her early albums are full of that kind of Disney hope, aren't they? She's got this beautiful hope that relationships are out there, and that lifelong perfect partner is just she's almost on the verge of finding him. But as you progress through the rest of her albums, the secular story unravels, doesn't it? It just rolls out for her, and we move from high hope, naive hope, to broken pain. And here we all are with Travis Kelce, hoping that he's finally the guy who's going to make life meaningful, or be that perfect partner for Taylor Swift. Everyone's rooting for Taylor and Travis. But how is her life an illustration of the story that God has for Taylor? What is it that God is offering to Taylor Swift and any other singer-songwriter artist who's out there? And here's the framework that I use, that I have at the back of my mind when I'm chatting to students. And it starts with this idea that people have deep in their subconscious an expectation of the world being a perfect place. We want relationships to work. I want to be in a world where I'm known and I'm significant, where I'm valued. I want to be in a world where I can give my life to something that has purpose, I want to be in a world where there is no such thing as aging and loss, where life is fair and there is no injustice. That's where I want to live. And that's what I expect the world is actually like. And then I end up discovering, as I go through my life, that actually I don't live in that world. I live in a broken reality where hope is letting me down and it's not proving real. Those relationships aren't working for me. And I stop writing the songs about love being a dream. And I start to write songs about blaming people for the breakdown in my relationships. And that's our experience, isn't it? That's why we're angry with climate change. That's why we're angry with world politics. That's why we're turning our back on leaders, because everybody in the broken world is fallen. Everybody lets us down, whether it be the Catholic Church or the US government. Who can we trust out there in the world? So this is what I like. And I sometimes say that all of life's pain is found between these two spaces. I want the world to be perfect, but I don't live in that world. I live in a broken world, and all of life's pain, aging and loss, all of life's pain is found in that space. So what can we do about it? And I love to go onto campus and say, hey, what's your area of expertise? What is it that you're studying? What's your major that you're doing for your degree? And how can that be used to make the world a better place? And we could send Taylor Swift to any number of psychologists or any number of relational therapists or people who have got great expertise in how to make two people get on well and communicate. And we could send Taylor Swift out there, and there's lots and lots of great books and great people that she could talk to, where she could actually improve the quality of her own security and her own relationships and the relationships she's having with her romantic partners. And perhaps if she picked up the right airport book from the right bookshelf, or she spoke to the right counselor, perhaps she would have a better chance of a successful relationship with Travis Kelce. Who knows? Perhaps she could have a lifelong satisfying relationship with him. But the odds are against her, aren't they? What I like about the next journey in the biblical story is that God says, here's some advice on how to make the world a better place. Go out and try and live, as Stowe put it, go and try and live God's law, God's commandments. And what we find is that we can make the world a slightly better place. We can help to repair the human condition, but what we can't do is completely fix it. You can't, using human effort, bring an end to aging and loss. That just is not going to happen. You can never, no matter how many laws you pass, make the world a just place. That is just not going to happen. There is always going to be pain in this world, in this broken world. So what can we do about it? Here's the world that we live in. It's led to this broken isolation that everyone is familiar with, this life of loneliness and difficulty that everyone is familiar with. What is it that the Jesus story, the Christian story, is offering that makes this different for us? What is it that God is offering to us? And I'd like to suggest that the first thing that God is offering is, what difference does grace make? What would it be like if someone could come and whisper into the center of my soul that I am known, that I am loved, that I am secure? What would it mean to me if someone could whisper into the center of my soul and tell me that they could remove all my guilt and shame? What would that be like? That's an emotional story. What would it be like if for Taylor Swift, if suddenly she could discover an inner security that enabled her to come into her relationship with Travis Kelce, not because she had to have her needs met, but because she had things to give? What difference would it mean in her relationships if she found ultimate security? If she was already loved by an ultimate partner? Would that make her relationships with Travis more long-lasting, more satisfying. So that's what the cross gives us, isn't it? It gives us a security where God whispers into our lives that we're known and that we're loved and that we're valued.
Baron, we have about 3 minutes left. Baron, we have about 3 minutes left.
No worries. But the cross is just the doorway into that relationship with the Holy Spirit. It's actually the Holy Spirit who takes what Christ achieves on the cross, and he's the one who begins to whisper into our souls that we're known and that we're valued. And he's the one who takes the promises that he gives us in the Bible and makes them mean something in our lives for real. But even there, we're still people who've experienced ultimate love. We're still fallen people in a fallen world, and it's not until eternity that we're going to get rid of this broken world pain that we're all so familiar with. So let me just finish with this little story. Here's Mary's story. Spot the high expectations, spot the broken reality, and spot the quality labourer in this story. So here's her words from Instagram. Almost 7 years ago, I dropped out of university for the first time and gave up on living. The following year, I tried again, only for the same thing to happen. I have endured unimaginable suffering over the last 7 years, spending years trapped inside my room, forced to watch as life passed me by. I have battled deep shame and disappointment that I didn't get to have the university experience I dreamed of. But because of the Open University, I've been able to live a full life, working, studying, and spending so much extra time with my family. But I owe even more to my incredible mother for saving my life over and over again, for sitting beside me as I wrote my first assignment and supporting me through all the others that followed, for her endless forgiveness and for her belief that I was worth fighting for. Jesus has led me out of the desert into an amazingly full life. He is giving me back the years that were stolen from me. I am healthy, I get to live in London, and now I have the history degree of my dreams. I will sing his praise forevermore. So there you go. That's where I'd finish. Here's a story of a quality labourer meeting someone with perfect expectations, but who's discovered that they actually live in a broken world, and bringing that authenticity that Stowe was talking about in a way that Jesus becomes real to them and begins to turn that broken reality into something beautiful. There you go. That's our experience of ministering to secular people at a heart emotional level with a great Jesus story that makes sense of the world in which they live. And Taylor Swift is not a bad illustration of that. Thanks.